I went into my boss's office and sat down and said, got something to tell you. She's like, oh, that's great, I've got something to tell you as well. And I'm like, all right, well, maybe I should go first. I'm not really feeling this whole thing, I'm not really passionate about it, and I like to leave my job. And she's like, oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Well, are you sure? Because what I was going to tell you is that you get a raise. I'm like, well, and I'm like, you know what, I can't do it. Like, I want to do this whole pursue the passion thing. I want to see where it leads. So, I basically gave up. Like, I was making like 50 grand or something like that, and to drop 50 grand to like just make no money and just live in my apartment and try to make this thing happen. So it was like something that my parents didn't understand. A lot of my friends who had just lined up good jobs didn't understand why I was quitting a job like 10 months into it when I invested all this time and money into getting an accounting major and going into an accounting job, but it just wasn't like the right path for me. So what I learned from that whole experience is that the goal should be to love your job. Now, how many people actually agree with that? This is kind of contradictory. I mean, shouldn't you just work and make money and be happy? I don't know. The fact is that there's 75 million Americans out there that dislike what they do for a living. So that's half the American workforce doesn't like what they do. And if you don't believe me, how many people are on Twitter? Okay, so do a Twitter search, go to twitter.com and type in, I hate my job. And you will see how many people do not like what they do for a living. And it's pretty sad, and I think it's pretty significant too that like literally 1 out of 2 people, the person sitting next to you or yourself, might go into a job that you really don't like. And I think that over the course of our lives, a lot of us will find us in that situation where you're like me in a burnt popcorn type of building, and you're like, what the heck am I doing? Like, I should do something else that's more close to my interests. So that's why I started this website. The whole Pursue the Passion initiative was just to help people who needed some kind of career guidance, aspirations, information, just an informed way to make a career decision. And so I started this thing, and my idea was basically to just travel around the country and gather content from people who had pursued their passion and ended up in a job that they really enjoyed. So again, started busting out the pencil and paper, jotting down people that I wanted to interview, but more so, I needed some money, and because I didn't have any, and I needed to cruise around the country in something that wouldn't break down. So I recruited these guys to help me search for sponsors. These are 3 of my buddies, and dude on the left, he was also an auditor at the time and was living with me and was kind of in a similar situation. And the 2 other guys were a couple rappers, and they don't look like it. The guy on the right looks like pretty cuddly, but these guys were just about to graduate from school. Kind of similar situation. I quit in March, and these guys were graduating in May. I was like, hey, I know you guys want to travel around the country and promote your CDs or whatever and do concerts. So let's merge the 2 tours and let's make something happen. But you guys got to work for me for like 2 months and find for sponsors. So that's basically what happened. And these are some of the people that we ended up approaching. So we had a long list, not very focused, but all types of people. And the very first sponsor that we approached was MTV, and we tried to get a reality show. So we met with the producer and pitched him on this whole idea, got a whole pilot together, and it was like the poorest pilot ever. It was like real bad stuff. It wasn't even cool. Like we're in like suits and stuff, and we're gonna travel around. Like MTV doesn't have that stuff, right? So we got mixed on that idea. So we're like, all right, next best thing, let's take our RV out to LA, try to get on Pit My Ride. You guys ought to seen the show. So what happened was we drove the RV from Phoenix to LA, and that's like a 6-hour drive. The RV didn't break down, and we still had it. By the way, it was like pretty hard to store an RV when you live in an apartment. But so we drove to LA. The very first thing that happens when we get to Los Angeles is that the awning falls off, like on the freeway, and we're like, great. So we stop, and it's like, and how many people have been to LA? And how's the traffic? Like those guys will kill you, like if you stop or whatever. So we stopped and we're like, stop the traffic, pick up the awning, and then duct tape it to the roof, and then drive to Pit My Ride. And we're like, you know what, we deserve to be, you know, pimped or whatever. So, we get into this audition parking lot or whatever, and we meet with a couple of the Pimp My Ride cast and crew, and these guys are like super pumped on it because they've never pimped an RV before, and they're like, oh man, we can put a hot tub on the roof, we can put flat screens throughout and whatever. I'm like, yeah, that sounds good, you know, hot tub on the roof. Yeah, sweet. So they get the producer, and the producer comes in, and he's looking at it like a little more skeptically. He's like, does this thing work? You know, this could be a hazard here, and blah, blah, blah. And then he looks in the back, and we have this big University of Arizona flag in the back, because all four of us went to U of A. And he's like, oh, do you guys go to U of A? We're like, you know what, man, bear down, and trying to be like, you know, pretty hyped up to be on the show or whatever. And he's like, well, that sucks because I went to Arizona State. And he's like, you guys have a good ride home. And walked out with RV. So that was, yeah, it's like if you guys ran into some dude from SMU, and he's like, you guys aren't getting filmed, you know? So yeah, so that was our first person that told us no. We had like a ton of other people tell us no. We actually got to the point where we just brought out a phone book and we're literally just dialing random numbers in the phone book to like try to get sponsorship. And we actually did end up getting like one small like sponsorship that was like almost a blessing and a curse, and I'll tell it to you because I think it's kind of relevant to try to make stuff happen, I guess. But we got this food company to give us a big stack of food vouchers for Hot Pockets. And we're like, all right, so we've got like 400 Hot Pockets that we can live on while we try to get a sponsorship or whatever. And so literally for breakfast, lunch, and dinner for 30 days straight, just surviving off of Hot Pockets. And have you guys seen the movie Super Size Me? Mickey D's dude eating these for like 30 days straight? Yeah, that was us. Like, the worst experience of my life. I can't look at a Hot Pocket today. And yeah, so we gave up Hot Pockets. I think we burned the coupons. Like, we're just done with it, you know? And so, long story short, it took us like 2 months of like daily struggle, getting up at like 6 a.m., working till like midnight to try to find sponsors and like get these proposals out and try to make this stuff happen. But then we, Jay had the idea to go to this job board called Jobby.com, and it's like Monster Career Builder. They just have a bunch of job postings and career content and stuff like that. And so I emailed their vice president and ended up meeting with two of their VPs and talking to them about what we wanted to do. They passed it on to the CEO right here, Aaron Matus, and Aaron shot me an email. It was like, hey, heard you had a good meeting today. Bring your big dreams. I'll see you on Thursday at 10. I'm like, all right, that sounds good, you know. So I'm jotting down everything that, you know, I think that he might ask me. And he's like a real intimidating dude. Like he's, you know, smiling in this picture, but like bald head, like pretty, you know, focused CEO, I guess. And so I go in there, telling him like, yeah, you know, we totally want to do this. Go across the country, 4 guys, an RV, and he's like Borat. And I'm like, no, not like that, you know, whatever. And so he ends up, I end up convincing him to sponsor this whole tour. And he gives us a big check and enough to buy a new RV and travel across the country and execute this thing. So what's crazy about this whole story is that they were literally a block away from my house. Like, that is nuts. Because when you think about it, it's like, we always have the tendency to fall into like a grass is always greener on the other side type of thing. And no matter what job you're working, you're always thinking about like, oh, is there something else out there for me? Or, you know, maybe it'd be so much cooler if I could work at this place instead of where I'm at right now. And we were literally sending out proposals to everywhere in the U.S. And we found like our gold mine right in our own backyard, which I think is really something to be said. So, like I said, Jobby made us not travel in my mom's 4Runner and gave us this RV right here and wrapped it and really, you know, kept us out, I guess. So just because we had a sponsor, that didn't mean that we still didn't have our struggles. This is us right here, caught up in a sandstorm in Las Vegas, which is pretty hazardous because what happens in a sandstorm or in wind is that the awning again like turns your RV into like a pirate ship almost, and like makes you veer in and out of the lanes and not safe. So we had to duct tape that up. We also broke down. This is us breaking down in Syracuse, New York. We broke down in Berkeley, California. We broke down in New Jersey. And just for a change of pace, we broke some buildings. This is us in Delaware. And we tried to fit into a space that was a little too small. So we ended up ripping off this bar's rain gutter. And the dude wasn't too happy with us. So we dropped it like a half a day to fix this thing. Ended up duct tape was the ultimate cure-all for everything on our trip. We also had personal breakdowns. This is our buddy Jay, who didn't drive the RV at all until we had these two girls meet up with us in Las Vegas and wanted to drive back with us to Boulder. And that drive was like 16 hours long, which is ridiculous after a night in Vegas, like to drive 16 hours to anywhere. And so Jay tried to man up and like, be impressed with, or like, show off in front of these girls or whatever. And so he gets in the car and starts driving and has back spasms like 5 minutes into it. And just tries to like tough it out, but he's like whimpering as we're going. I'm like, dude, you gotta pull over, man. And so we, as soon as we got in the Boulder, I had to take him to the ER. So I think that wasn't really unrelated to the fact that our sleeping conditions were pretty bad. This is us back in the RV. And that's when we couldn't find better accommodations like this. This is me in New York, shacked up in a nice little hole in the wall. And then we also had, paint in the pump. Their gas was pretty expensive. Definitely needed a sponsor to do this. The RV got 6 miles a gallon. So if you're ever thinking about replicating this, it's pretty, you need Daddy Fat Sacks to kind of bankroll it.